Hi. For some personal, unfortunate reasons, I stuck for a few days in Italian Dolomites. I did all my planned and unplanned via ferratas and mountain bike trips, so now I have some time left to talk about something professional. And this is the first professional video on the channel where I'd like to talk about my experience with Agile Methodologies. It's not an educational video though, but I think you may find it interesting because I will share some of my good and bad experiences as well as I summarize the outcome, which may be useful for some folks. So feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's find out how to do the Agile the right way. Recently, I had a good bottle of wine with a former colleague and friend of mine, and back in the days he was working in my team as a scrum master or as a producer, as we used to say it that days. And today he's one of the most successful product managers in Berlin. And this transition from a scrum master to a product manager is actually interesting in the context of the discussion, because one of my points is that successful scrum masters are transitioning to some other professions, which is natural. So me and my friend were retrospecting about the role of Scrum Master and where it is today. I remember that my first experience with Agile Methodologies was back in 2006 when I met Scott Ambler, the father of extreme programming, at the scientific conference in Novosibirsk, Russia. You may remember all these funny jokes about extreme pair programming. Back in 2006, it was really a hype approach, and we tried this all. Then, while working already for a software engineering company here in Berlin, I remember when they decided to introduce Scrum to our relatively small engineering team. Interesting fact, the consultant, the Scrum Master, came from Vienna. It's interesting that just 15 years ago, there were no proper Scrum Masters in Berlin available for consultancy services. So they had to bring one from Vienna. Or maybe that was some of the management arrangements. So they had a friend in Vienna and said, okay, this guy gonna teach us Scrum, while there were plenty of Scrum Masters available. But I think in 2009 and 2010, that was just the beginning. So after this onboarding and several days of consultancy, we became truly enabled Scrum team. On the dailies and retros, we were doing the daily stuff and retrospecting. I remember that I had a director in that company, and he was attending the retrospective meetings of the engineering team. And the first thing he did, he fired several people. One of the people was one of the founders of the company. So she worked for the company for some 23 or 25 years, and she was fired. Nobody liked the new director. When a new, probably temporary guy is firing a founder, do you really want to share with him all your opinions during the retrospective? So nobody did. So there was a joke.
It's a joke.
And in my opinion, all these dailies and retrospectives with that guy kind of attending them for the good reason, but actually he was doing this all wrong, and that was just making things worse. People were not sincere. We don't want to give any reason to speculate later on. So that was a classical example of the good, proper Scrum on paper, where everything was correct, but nothing really worked. Then, some years later, I joined another company. It was way bigger. Just the department of quality assurance was about 30 people, I think. And when I joined back in 2014, folks were doing dailies every day. And each of 25 quality assurance engineers were telling what they are doing, what blocks them, and what they're gonna do. Classical 3 daily questions. In the reality, nobody cared. Because you can't really follow what 25 colleagues or 24 colleagues of you are actually doing. You can't really team up with 25 people at the same time. So people were just saying over and over again, but there was nobody to track the progress, raise the concerns, and try to define actions if something goes wrong. Actually, some months later, the team lead said, look guys, spending 40 minutes of like 1 hour a day, discussing things at the daily without any follow-up actions, it's just too much. When our lead found out, he said, okay, let's just do the daily once per week. Then it's not the daily, because over the week people piled up shit and they shared that, and to clean it up and take some actions, it was even more complicated than on a daily basis. Of course, this craziness with running 25 people in a scrum mode could not last long. The company had a large rework. Quality assurance was deprecated as a whole. Some folks became software engineers, others left the company, so I became a true software engineer. I became a part of a small feature team. The role of a producer was introduced. So for those who doesn't know, producer, nothing complicated. It's a full-time role of Agile Methodologies who supports the team on the full-time basis. And that worked actually pretty well, because there was always someone with the team who manages the backlog and asks the right questions to the team. Hey guys, what are you working now? Are you sure? And this kind of thing. So all good questions that some engineers in the team did not like. And actually these kind of nasty questions used to drive projects further. So that was a good experience. And actually that was the day when the colleague of mine, who I mentioned at the beginning, actually joined the team where I was a software developer. After a few years of experience with producers, the role in the company was deprecated. Many people left the companies. I think the smartest and the most ambitious ones switched to other roles, like product managers or delivery leads. I think for most of them that was not easy, but that was a natural shift, because Scrum Masters used to know the business domain and they knew what engineers were working on, and they were connecting multiple stakeholders and product owners and product managers. So for them, it was actually quite natural to get a bit of education, learn things, get on a probation, some kind of stretch assignment, and at some point switch to a more demanded role in the company. And they did that. I'm happy for them. Why the producer's role was deprecated? My insightful, opinionated opinion is that managing any agile methodology is easy. Everyone can do that. Every person in the team can do that. An engineering manager must be able to do this. So in my case, engineering managers had to take an additional duty of doing some kind of agile things for their teams. I remember when my Scrum Master switched the team because he became a product manager or something, and there was a team retrospective ceremony. Our product manager was joining this ceremony as well. And I said, okay, I'm going to do the retrospective. And she asked me, hey, how are you going to do the retrospective ceremony? You need some additional skills. And I said, oh, come on, let me try. Looking for your feedback afterwards. It was something like nothing special for me, but actually it was a bit of a stress for some engineering managers. It's simple as that. Just do this. The role of producers was deprecated, and that's kind of natural because you don't need a dedicated person to run, I would say, simplistic ceremonies. So the company went further, and they introduced an approach of every team defines for itself, and that was really great because every team has different stakeholders and a bit different of operational cadence. Some teams are 24/7 and on-call teams, others are not. Some teams are purely front-end, others stuck into some kind of analytical things and pipeline. So you can't really introduce one approach that is the best for every team. Every team had to decide its own ways of working, and that was really working well, and this is where we are today. Of course, all these ways of working are based on some kind of an agile methodology. I must say, from my experience, majority of the teams around me, they run some kind of modification of Scrum. This kind of freedom and flexibility that the company gave the teams, I think is the best I have seen so far, because you know best who you work with and how to make these stakeholders happy. So define your approach yourself. Okay, let's summarize things. Let me put things together and summarize a bit. To the episode of the ugly director that was hated by everybody. Before you introduce any process, not only simple a new agile methodology, make sure the team buys in. If everybody hates you, nobody will follow. To the episode of large teams of quality assurance engineers. Back in the days, the software was developed as a huge monolithic applications, and this software was tested by a large team of quality assurance engineers. These days, we are up to smaller teams, and if for whatever reason you have to manage actually a rather larger group of software engineers, make sure that you split them and manage each group separately. Most likely this is possible, though you may have a special case. To the case of a dedicated scrum master, if the company has money and the position open for this role, go ahead. But I think now everybody wants to save some money, therefore train your team to become a scrum master. This should not be difficult, because Scrum, in my opinion, is relatively easy. If you are, as an engineering manager, for whatever reason, is absent for a day or two, then everyone in the team should be able to replace you, guide the daily, moderate the planning, and conduct a retrospective. This should work just fine. As you may see, it started to rain. I had a nice walk around the town, and it's time to finish. If you like it, please like it and leave a comment with your opinion. Would be happy to hear. Ciao.